Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Manxiety Podcast.
We're your hosts, Ashad and Matt. Before we get started, if you're enjoying this show, please subscribe so you can get notified of new episodes.
If you want to share this with your friends, you can find us on all podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
This week, we'll be talking about caring. And no, we're not talking about the Care Bears. We're talking about caring too much. Caring is very important, right? I think everyone needs to have some sympathy or some empathy because that's what makes us human, right? What makes us able to relate to other people. What makes us, care for others. But there does come a certain point where that can start negatively affecting our own mental health and our own lives when we start caring too much about things. And, this has to do with, again, everything we've talked about sort of to this point. It has to do a lot with the stoicism that we've been talking about, in a sense, because a lot of times when you care too much, you're caring about externals too much, right? Things that are outside of your control and outside of you. And caring about those things, again, in and of itself, not bad. But when you start caring about them too much and you let them negatively affect your life, now you're just bringing something into your life that really doesn't need to be there. You're just causing, mental distress and anxiety for really no good reason. This happens a lot with, I think a lot with families, right? And you might say, oh, families are not external. They're your family, blah, blah, blah. No, if it's outside of you, it is external. So, yes, they are your family or your loved ones or your cared ones, whatever, your friends, your family, whoever it is, right? And you should care about them and care about, what's going on with their lives. But when you start caring too much about what they say or what they do, right? You just, if it's something that you're doing that they're, commenting about, and you care too much about what they say, and this happens a lot, especially in traditional family, like traditional cultures, right? Like Armenian, what I am, Persian, Greek, like things like that, where people care too much about what their family thinks or what their friends think or what they, I can't go out dressed this way because people might think this of me, or I can't do XYZ because people might think whatever of me. And again, caring a little bit about it, right? I'm not saying, go out naked because obviously, there's laws against that. But two, you don't want to be the guy on the news that your family and friends see because you walked out of the house naked and went to the mall or something. But there's a certain point, right? Like thinking, what is this family member going to think of me? Who cares what they think? You shouldn't let other people's thoughts and feelings affect your own. And that's what I mean when I say caring too much about that. Or when, maybe a friend is going through a tough time, right? Obviously you care for them, you want to be there for them. So you go and you offer whatever help you can, right? Whatever help you have and you're able to. But at a certain point, when you start, sitting there and thinking about them, all day and all night, and, trying to sort of taking it upon yourself, right? Taking agency over like what they're going through, you start causing yourself trouble. You start putting, maybe you're not doing your job or your, whatever you have to do for yourself. Maybe you're not spending any time for yourself to think about yourself because all you're doing is thinking about them. And again, that's causing mental angst for you for no good reason because you've already done what you can. And sort of anything past that, it's kind of unnecessary. I think this might be the longest stretch I've ever talked without hearing Matt's voice. Matt, you still there? Do you still care about me?
I think you broke a record. Yeah, I was gonna say I was about to say like in the middle of it, it's like, dang, this guy cares a lot about not caring. He's so caring about this, but it's so true, and it's tough. It's tough to do. It's true, but tough to do. That rhymes, because everybody says don't care what other people think, and yet everybody cares what other people think. Right? Even though you may not care what somebody else does, you think that they do about you. And like anything, too much of it is probably a bad thing. Of course, we're not saying like don't care about your friends, your family, your pets. You're just like, fuck it, they can live on their own. I'm gonna, my cat can open the can of tuna herself. I don't give a shit anymore. That's not what we're saying. We're saying that when you start to take on a lot of the world's problems, and it's not something that you can directly control and influence, you start to build up a lot of negativity. And when caring too much becomes detrimental to your daily life, your relationships, and your job, that's when it starts to become a problem. The same thing with anxiety. A little bit of anxiety is good, right? A little bit of anxiety, a little bit of the butterflies in your stomach, anxious, excitement, all that stuff. It can be good, right? In short bursts. But if you're anxious all day, every day, then it becomes a problem. And part of that anxiety could very well stem from you caring about other stuff too much, because you are taking on everybody's problems, right? The world sucks. There's a lot of shit that goes on in the world that is terrible every single day. In the few minutes I was just speaking, somebody was born and somebody died, right? That's
Actually, there's a person born every 3 seconds and a person dies every 5 seconds.
All right. Okay. Then there's a lot of them in that little bit there, but you can't think about all of that stuff. It's good to think about it and to think how can you help like the community at large and the world and all that stuff, right? But you also have to remember to take care of yourself first. And if you taking on everybody else's issues and problems and sitting there going like, oh my God, I really need to help this person. I need to help this person, and just overdoing it, it's not helping yourself.
I agree. That was a good example you brought up about the animals, because that actually can be detrimental not only to you, right, caring too much about your pets, but also to the pets themselves, right? Like you said, a cat can't open their own can of tuna, obviously, unless there's one specially made for them to open. Who knows? And, similarly, dogs can't feed themselves. They'll just eat the whole bag and then not have any left for tomorrow, because that's how animals work. They eat food when it's there and, look for it when they're hungry the next time. But, if you start caring too much about it, right, and you're like, oh no, my dog can't walk outside because he might get tired, right? So then you start taking your dog in a stroller everywhere. Then you're like, oh no, my dog can't, poop correctly because it's too hard. So you start giving your dog diarrhea medication, right? I'm just giving examples to make their stool soft. Sorry, stool softeners, right? Then you're like, all right, well, my dog can't, drink its own water. So now I have to feed it water using a sippy cup or whatever, right? You're caring way too much about this dog. And the problem is you're spending way too much on them and not enough time on you. And two, the other problem is one day you're not there to do this stuff, your dog's not going to be able to do it themselves, right? If your dog's gotten used to being sippy cup fed, chances are it doesn't know, it forgot how to drink water by itself. If it's used to going on strolls, probably forgot, it's not strong enough to walk itself, and it's not going to be able to go outside. If it's always using stool softener, well, guess what? Their stomach muscles probably aren't strong enough anymore to push that poop out. So they're at a disadvantage there too. So what I'm saying is caring too much isn't only bad for you. It's also bad for, in some cases, the other person if you're physically doing something to affect it. But that was sort of the animal piece. But the other piece I also want to mention was, sometimes you're doing something. Let's go back to the animals, actually. The animals were a good one. Say you're taking care of your animal, whatever. You're doing things the right way, right? And you choose to feed your dog cucumbers, right? Because cucumbers are a nutritious snack for dogs. And, one of your friends or family finds out you're feeding them cucumbers. They're like, you can't feed them cucumbers. It's a dog. They're supposed to eat meat. In nature, dogs only eat meat. Blah, 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 blah. Spewing all this BS at you. If you care too much about what they think, one, you're probably not going to feel very good about yourself because you're like, what should I do now? Do I continue feeding it these cucumbers that my dog is really enjoying, or do I have to go and feed it meat, which probably isn't very good for domesticated dogs? So it can be bad in both instances. I think we just have to remember that you have to care for people, you have to care what people think, but to a certain extent. Not when it comes at the detriment of your own life and your own health and your own well-being. And people are always going to have opinions, right? The world is full of people, and people are full of opinion. So chances are you're going to get some opinions from people, regardless of what you do. If you feed your dog meat all day, every day, I am 100% sure someone's going to come by and tell you you're doing it wrong. Your dog should not only be eating meat, it is a domesticated animal. You need to start feeding it some vegetables because they're good for it. And if you're feeding it, balanced, healthy diet, they're going to say, no, it's an animal. In the wild, all it eats is meat. You better start feeding it meat because you're, causing it problems. So, you're kind of screwed either way. So might as well be screwed the way you enjoy being screwed. Yeah. Anyway, that was my 2 cents on caring too much in animals.
2 cents? That was a whole nickel.
It was.
Yeah, I think a really good example that I think can illustrate this is something that we've all probably had to witness, whether it's depending on which side of the fence you're on, but it's with wearing masks with COVID, right? So if you're like, let's say, you're fully vaccinated and you go to like a gas station or something, right? Everybody else is wearing masks and you're not, then people are going to be like, well, why aren't you wearing a mask, right? Or why are you wearing a mask or whatever? And early on, I would wear a mask all over the place. Just because I'm like, hey, if this thing's gonna help get COVID, especially pre-vaccine, like, hey, I'm gonna do this thing, right? It doesn't really hurt me, and in doing so, you get a lot of looks from people, like all the time, right? Especially early on. I remember, like early on, I was wearing a mask in the office in like I don't know, fucking like April of 2020, and my boss at the time was literally like, dude, take that shit off. Like, why are you talking to me with this? And I was like, well. Partially because I was wearing, I didn't have actual masks yet. It was before they were like popular, so I had one of those. It's not a baklava, but it's like close to it, where like it's for skiing. And basically, I was essentially wearing like a ski mask, and I looked like I was gonna rob the place. And it's just one of those things where I was like, well, what difference does it make to you what I do to make myself feel safe, right? Like, I want to wear this because I don't have anything else, and it's going to stop something, right? I can't spit through it type of thing. So why does it matter to that other person? But people will constantly give you their opinions about everything, right? Like you said, with the dog diet, your diet, what you're doing, whatever, right? People want to be right. People want to give you their opinion. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to what you want to do and the choices that you want to make.
And what you think is right? What you think is best. I think it's not always about what you want to do. I think in most cases, people, do some research or have thought some things through, whether for good or for bad, right? And they're making a decision because they've thought it through, because they think it's the best decision for them.
Yeah, right? But then it's in reverse. It's like, well, if somebody's doing something that maybe is just different from what you're doing, right? You're doing paleo, they're doing keto, and you're both going to argue endlessly about which diet is better. Why do you care what they're doing? Because they're living their life, right? They've done their own research. They've looked up whatever. The same way that you don't want somebody to give you like their opinion constantly about what you're doing, right? Basically to criticize you. So it's kind of like when you care too much about them, and it's different from having like a healthy, discourse and a healthy argument, right? Hey, what's the research on this diet? What's the research on this? Going back and forth. It's when you start to like, kind of like
your diet is stupid. That's
yeah. It's almost like when you become like
anything.
the cultist,
right?
And you're evangelical about it, where you're like everybody has to do this specific diet, otherwise you're like a piece of shit, right? And I mean, I'm a jiu-jitsu bro. I've done that. I've preached the good word of BJJ many times, right? About how it's the best sport for people and all this stuff. But there's people that don't like it, right? And then it's one thing to tell somebody information and provide them information, and another thing to like overly care in this sense of like what they're doing. Now, of course, if they're hurting other people or they're hurting themselves, that's kind of a distinction you have to make. But at the end of the day, most people are just trying to live their lives and trying to figure out what the fuck we're all doing here. So, it's like, is you having that argument with them worth your time, right? Is it worth you to give your time and energy for that level of care for whatever it may be? And a lot of things, not really, right? Like if somebody's, dressed funny, or if somebody hasn't washed their car, why do you care, right? If you're like, everybody has to have clean cars. Now, if you're like, everybody has to have clean cars because it prevents smog or pollution or something, and there's actually a good reason for it, sure, whatever. But good luck convincing everybody that they have to wash their car every week, right? So it's just tough because, going back to the whole analogy we always use about being in an airline, or a plane rather, and then like the masks come down, you have to put yours on first, right? So once like you're good to go, you're taking care of yourself, you're happy, healthy, all that stuff, yeah, maybe you can start caring about your family, your friends, your community. But when they tell you like, no, I'm not going to do that or whatever, kind of touching on the stoic aspect, like when you don't have control over the situation, you really shouldn't like care too much about it. Right? If somebody else says like, I'm going to drive fast on the freeway, right? That's just how they are. They're going to drive fast on the freeway. And you're in the car, that's one thing. But if you're not, it's like, well, I can tell you, please drive the speed limit. I can tell you why, right? You might get an accident. I care about you, all this stuff. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to worry what they're doing because they're making their own choices, right? Like it's, at a certain point, you have to like draw that line in the sand and just be like, other people are living their lives too, and they're going to have consequences for their actions. And that's okay. But as long as I'm safe and happy and taking care of myself, then I can kind of look outside of that and see what's going on.
Well, I think like it is good to put the disclaimer out there that you kind of said, which is as long as you're not hurting other people, right, or doing something that can negatively impact others. Right, like going back to the example of like, should you wear a mask, should you not? Masks are proven to at least limit the rate of transmission, right, of COVID. So if I'm wearing a mask and you're not wearing a mask, and you're telling me not to wear a mask, as someone wearing a mask, I shouldn't care too much about what you think, because there have been studies done, and there's evidence that masks help stop the spread. Now, if you're not wearing a mask, and I'm wearing a mask, and I'm telling you, hey, you should wear a mask because it helps stop the spread, and you're trying to use that same argument against me and say, I'm not going to care too much about what other people think, blah, 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 blah. Now you're hurting other people, right? Now you're potentially spreading this virus to others. And so in this case, unfortunately, you kind of have to care. And you may not, right? Whatever. There's plenty of people out there that don't care. They'll just do whatever they want, which is fine. But if you're hurting others, if you're not caring at all, I think that's where the line gets drawn. If you're not caring at all, then there's a problem there. That you need to care. You need to care to an extent. You need to care about other people. You need to care about your own actions and how they affect other people. Don't care too much, but you still have to care. And it is a hard line to draw, right? But, again, as long as you're not hurting others, I think it's fair to say that, you shouldn't listen to them, but don't care too much about what other people say or what they think or where their actions are. I mean, I think it is one of the Stoic teachings that says something along the lines of, people. I don't remember how it goes. I think it was like a smart mind learns. Basically, the premise is like, if someone gives you some new information and it's valid information, right, and it goes against what your own thoughts are about something, then someone who has a strong mind or a strong mind is able to change their mind about that subject and adopt this new view on it, right? So you're not being stubborn. Someone brings up a good point, there's evidence behind it, whatever, you do your own research, then you're able to change your mind. So I think it kind of comes down to that, right? Like, listen to people, listen to what they say. If it's something that makes sense, then yeah, you should definitely listen to them and, do your own research, and maybe it changes your mind, that's fine. But if it isn't, if it's just their opinion, if you've already done your research and the decision you're making is the right one for you, and again, you're not hurting other people, you're not, potentially causing any other people harm, then you should stick to it and not really care about what they say.
Yeah, the mask part I realized was kind of a bad example because not everything is black and white. I was trying to relate more to like, why do I care when other people give me like dirty looks? It's like, I care about my health, so like that's why I'm gonna keep doing what I do, right? Regardless of them. But then I was like, yeah, I could see how somebody could be like, oh, I don't care about anything, I'm not gonna care about you,
yeah,
right? So you still have to like have that community aspect, but like Ashad said, right, it's caring too much, and determining where that too much is usually based on like when it starts to hurt you. So for example, caring what you wear in public, good. Caring about how you look to an interview, good. Sitting in front of the mirror and plucking every single one of your hairs that's out of line with your beard trim, maybe not so good, right? Caring so much that like you spend 45 minutes getting ready and making sure every hair is perfectly in place and you forget to go to your interview or you're late, see, then that's where it starts to become a bad thing, right? So it's one of those things where you learn real quickly, especially having a podcast and editing a lot of podcasts like we do, how stupid you sound sometimes, right? When you go back and you're like, wow, I can't believe I used that word. Right? I'm a dummy. And then you realize, well, who cares? Like, I got my point across, right? And yeah. I was able to say what I wanted to. People hopefully understood it, and it's hopefully helping people. Why do I care if I did that specific thing? Or sometimes when we tell embarrassing stories about how our anxiety manifested, right? Obviously it has a purpose to help other people, but you're kind of like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm going to say that. Oh, okay. And the more you do it, the more experience you have, the easier it is for you to just be like, okay. So many people have one-off stuff because they're just having a bad day, right? I actually saw it worded pretty cool. I think it was on like Instagram where somebody's like, if you had $84,000 and somebody was like, hey, can I, or like if you had a stack of $84,000 and somebody walked up and took $10, like you could be upset, but you're not gonna be like, I'm fucking robbed, right? Like it's this egregious act, like how dare they or whatever, right? Or if you misplace $10 basically, right? You drop it on the floor or something. And the idea is that like, I think that's the math is correct. That's how many seconds you have in a day. So if somebody takes like $10 or whatever from you, it's basically the equivalent of them taking like that decision. Like if you're driving to work and you're in your car and somebody speeds up ahead and cuts you off, it's like, don't let that moment ruin the whole day, right? So when you start to care about that one thing and you dwell on that one instance that happened, that's when it starts to be a problem. And that's what happens sometimes with like the anxiety side too, is you're like, well, you really care. Maybe you're more anxious about how other people are going to perceive you, like your friend group, or you're going to go to a party, right? Or you're anxious because you're like, I don't feel safe going to a party and I don't want to tell my friends no, right? And then that's why it goes back to boundaries and everything as well within yourself. But very much it's like, oh my God, I'm so worried that everybody's going to think weirdly of me, or I'm going to say something dumb. And then you end up saying something dumb because the entire time you know, you're so focused on that thing, right? Like, I don't know if this is true, but I got my wisdom teeth out, and right before getting my wisdom teeth out, the only thought in my head was like, do not hit on the nurse. Do not hit on the nurse. Do not hit on the nurse. So I'm pretty damn sure when I woke up, the first thing I did was try to hit on the nurse.
That's hilarious.
I'm pretty sure, but I don't remember any of it. I don't remember like 45 minutes of my life after getting off of anesthesia. So, yeah, I don't care about it because I'm like, whatever happened, right? Like, I can't change it. Like, maybe I did say something really dumb to them. I don't know. And then also, like, another thought in my head was like, don't hit on the assistant. Like, don't hit on the office staff. Like,
you're just hitting on everyone, Matt.
Yeah, well, there's just a ton of beautiful people where I got my wisdom teeth out, man. And I was just like sitting there, like, don't say anything stupid, you know. I probably did, but guess what? It doesn't matter. I haven't even actually thought about that until right now. Thinking about
good, you shouldn't.
So,
no, you know, yeah. I always say that me forgetting things easily or not remembering things is a good thing, because then I just don't ever worry about what other people think or thought or any of that. But also, I don't know if it's something I've recently developed or I've had it for a while. Can't remember. Actually, maybe you remember when we were in college. Did I care what other people thought?
Yeah. What do you mean?
Did I? Like
I thought you were just trying to make a joke about not caring about what other people like.
No. I don't remember really caring. Like, I don't remember when I stopped caring. But like if I wear something out, like, sometimes, you know, my wife will go like, you know, are you really going to wear that out? Like, I'm like, yeah, I really don't give a shit. Like, if I'm going to go to Home Depot or something, right? And a lot of times I just, like, you know, rip clothes, paint on me, like all kinds of crap. Because, like, I really don't care. Like, I mean, it's not like I'm going to a super fancy restaurant like that. Like, that's one thing, right? That doesn't even have to do with caring about what other people think. That's just like, you know, going to a nice place, I want to be dressed nice. But I can't remember, like, when I stopped caring what other people really thought about what I did. And I'll do this all the time, right? Like, I'll like wear a hat or something. Or no, I started wearing hairbands recently. Or headbands. Sorry, not hairbands. Headbands. Because I just have really long hair, and sometimes I don't want to wear a hat because it's too hot, and I don't want to do my hair. And, you know, the headband just, like, keeps the hair back and keeps it out of my eyes. And so, and, you know, especially in Armenian culture, I feel like a lot of guys don't wear headbands. So sometimes I'll go and, you know, someone will, like, either my wife or someone else will go like, do you really want to, like, go out like that? And I'm like, yeah, like, who am I trying to impress? Like, I don't feel like doing my hair. I don't want to wear a hat. Like, I think this looks fine. I don't give a shit what other people see and think. Like, you know, screw them. Like, I'm not hurting them, right? It goes back to that. I'm not hurting them. It's convenient for me. I think it looks good enough. I'm good with it. And honestly, it's helped me a lot with just, I've never had anxiety over what other people think of me, whether it's what I'm doing or how I'm doing it or how I look. I think because of that. And again, I don't ever go out just like dirty, like, you know, unkept or dirty or anything like that. But it's just like, I might make some fashion choices that, you know, may not be popular, but who gives a shit? I'm a trendsetter. Leader, not a follower.
There you go. But yeah, it's so, I don't know. Sometimes like I'll post some shit, like if I post something on Instagram, and then like people don't like it, I'm like, all right, I guess like that joke didn't land. But I'm like, why do I care what other people think? So then I just don't ever post to Instagram because I'm like, why do I'm doing it for them, not for me, type of shit. So then I just stop doing it and stop interacting with people. but you know what I mean? It's just like it's a weird thing where.
Well, actually, no. Like going off of that, whenever you post on Instagram, do you go and see how many people viewed? Like, let's say you post a story or whatever. How many people viewed it?
Very rarely. Only if it's like something that, only if it's like something related to something specific that I brought up with somebody. Like I was like, oh, did you see that like meme I posted or something? And then I know that they haven't because like, oh shit, no, you didn't type of thing. But it's like very rare. Like normally, if I post something, it just goes into the ether, and I don't ever check it.
Yeah, same here. I don't think I've ever been on that page where you check how many people have viewed it because I just don't care, right? Like I put it out there, and then if people want to view it, they want to view it. If they don't, then they don't, right? Like it's, and I know people that are like posted every 2 seconds. They like open it up, like how many people have viewed it so far? How many people have viewed it so? And it's like why? Like why do that to yourself, right? Like if you thought something was cool and you took a picture of it or a video and you posted it out there for other people to see, like you thought it was cool. That's enough. Other people don't have to view it to give you validation that it was cool.
Yeah, dude. I'm dropping fire memes for people.
You are. I actually do like your memes. They're pretty hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because I actually have like likes and comments and shit off on Instagram. I don't get notifications for it.
Yeah.
And it is kind of funny looking at something like that, right? Like people who care too much about social media. And then there's also people that will try to embarrass you, which I think are hilarious. Like I posted a photo of myself because I had like buzzed my hair, and I was, I don't know, relating to fucking, like I was talking about Britney Spears and like free Britney, right? I was like, fuck it, like let's just use this hashtag because I had to cut my hair a few months ago, and did that. I just buzzed it. It was the easiest thing to do, and somebody's like, what was it like? I forget what the comment was. It was something. I'm gonna actually look it up because I thought it was funny, but people who don't know my specific friend probably just thought he was being a dick.
Actually, I kind of remember you said something like that. You mentioned it.
Well, I said, what did I say? Oh, he's like, somebody comment on it. Someone is getting fat. And yeah. I commented fat checks. Yes, sir. Like, what? And then I was like, I guess like I took it at a different angle than I normally do. And I was like, I guess my cheeks look more like whatever. But I'm like, I actually have probably lost weight since I last took a photo on Instagram. I don't know. Because my weight fluctuates. I'm just fucking, depending on my access to fast food, which during lockdowns and shit was very, very minimal.
Yeah, that's funny.
But yeah, I don't know. It's just weird thinking about that because there's people that like spend all day trying to troll and shit. And I'm just like, who cares? Like, are you having fun? Are you living your life? Just like, go do that, man. And I think that it's been so helpful relating to the anxiety portion because then you just don't care as much about, I don't know, because I feel like if I cared what every single person who's following me on Instagram thought, I'd be wasting a lot of time.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's so many people that literally be like, did I make them happy? Did I make them happy? And I have a very diverse group of friends that, are from all over the world, different ethnic backgrounds, religious backgrounds, race, all this shit. So I try not to offend anybody, but sometimes if I post a meme and somebody gets mad or something, I'm like, hey, man, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
So, yeah, that's a good point. I mean, hey, you could just delete social media.
True.
And nobody will care.
Social media is just just one example of that. Anyway, I think that's a wrap on this episode. So thank you all for listening. We're happy to be back, doing regular episodes again. Stay safe, stay healthy, And we'll talk to you guys again on Thursday.